You are listening to the Wordslinger Podcast, episode 74, Unconventional Marketing with Melissa Burch.
You're unconventional.
Writing a book. It can be the best way to build or grow your business, or to simply tell the story that you wish to tell. Learn how to write your book in 30 days or less. Pick up 30-day offer today from Amazon, Apple iBooks, or other online retailers.
It's the Wordslinger Podcast, where story matters. Build your brand, write your book, redefine who you are. It's all about the story here. What's yours? Now, here's the guy who invented Pants Optional, Kevin Tomlinson, the Wordslinger.
Wordslinger.
Hey everyone, this is Kevin Tomlinson, the Wordslinger. Thanks so much for tuning in. I gotta be honest with you, last week I did not post an episode, and that's my fault. And I apologize for those of you who were eagerly waiting for your podcast feed to download. I actually don't think anyone even noticed, to be honest. I don't think my show gets listened to day of. It might. If you listen to the show the day it releases, which is every Friday, please let me know. I would love to hear from you. I don't get stats like that, really. Or maybe I do, and I just don't know how to find them. I don't know. Podcasting is such a weird animal. So the reason I didn't post, well, I got lazy. I'll be honest with you. Actually, I got bogged down on a whole bunch of details before this big event happened, which I'm about to describe. But I didn't record enough episodes ahead of time to fill the gap. That's like a cardinal sin in the podcasting world. I apologize. That's really that's irresponsible of me, and I work hard to avoid situations like that, but sometimes things just catch up with me, and I'm doing this on my own, so what can I say? But the biggest reason I didn't post is because I attended the Smarter Artist Summit, which was put on by the guys from the Self-Publishing Podcast, or their company name is Sterling & Stone, and I have to tell you, so, most of you should know, I'm an independent author. I've been doing this for a while now, and I absolutely love this work. It's my dream. It's the career I've built for my entire life. And in very large part, the guys at Sterling & Stone actually helped me kind of cement this idea, helped me get into it. I've been writing my whole life. I had written books long before I ever discovered the Self-Publishing Podcast, but I attended the Colony Summit last year. You may remember that from some other episodes, numerous other episodes. I've brought it up a lot. That was kind of the forerunner, sort of the first generation of this summit. There were only like 25 people at that thing, and I was blessed to be one of them. And because of that event, my entire life just changed. Everything about what I wanted to do with my career took a sudden turn, and I realized I was on the wrong path. I was doing the wrong stuff, and they really helped me refocus and get back on track, and I could not be more grateful for that. This summit was much larger. There were like 150 plus people. There were success stories from this industry. Joanna Penn. You've heard a lot of these people on this podcast. Joanna Penn was there. Mark Dawson was not there. He was there in spirit. There were quite a few people. There was representatives from Kobo. Dan Wood from Draft to Digital. He's been on this show. He was there. Great guy. I loved all of them, and had just an amazing time. And all the independent authors that are part of that community, They too have been amazing. So, at any rate, that was a wonderful opportunity. If you are an independent author or have ever wanted to do that as a career, or you just are interested in it, the price tag on this event was like $500, and you pay for hotel or whatever. I took the RV, something that we'll discuss in just a moment. But I took the RV and found a nice spot where I could camp out for the week. Cost me a whopping $89 versus the like $200 a night I would have paid at the hotel. And it was I don't know, it was another life-changing event, and you are sure to hear more about it. So at any rate, you should definitely plan to go next year, and you'll hear details from me as the year progresses, because I'm a big fan of what these guys are doing. It's amazing. What they're doing to help the community is amazing. Help people just like you, I'm sure. Entrepreneurs of all kinds, I think, would have benefited from this event. I preach write a book. No matter what sort of entrepreneur you are, you should definitely write a book. Chris Fox, who is very similar to me, and you'll be hearing an interview from him in the coming weeks. He actually he produced 5,000 words per hour. That's one book he's got out there. He's got Right to Market. He was at the event. He was also a great guy. I did not get to spend as much time with these folks as I wanted to, which is unfortunate. But there were just so many people, and I loved all of them. Anyway, that's enough of me preaching about the Smarter Artist Summit, but definitely you should go next year. If you're on the fence at all, you should definitely go. I highly recommend it. Call me up you can call me. You can call me at 281-809-WORD, 281-809-9673, or email me from wordslingerpodcast.com. You can go on there and find the contact form, and you can ask me about the event, and I'll be happy to talk to you, make introductions, whatever you want, but you should definitely try to go. And that's the end of that plug. So, and I get no money for this, by the way. This isn't like a sponsored thing. It was so life-changing that I couldn't not share it with you. So definitely plan to go to that. Now, for those of you who have been supporting me on Patreon, I really appreciate it. I just had a payment come through today. So thank you so much for your support. If you would like to support the show financially, I would greatly appreciate it. I'm trying to hit $5,000 a month. That's a lofty goal. But you can go surf on over to wordslingerpodcast.com. You'll see a big button that says Patreon. On any given post, actually, the show notes for this show, no matter where you are, there is a link to my Patreon campaign. So I would appreciate it. As little as $1 per episode, even $1 per month, really. But I mean, as little as $1 per episode would be very helpful in moving me towards this goal. That money will help me produce this show. I can bring in support so that I can, I can hand things over to someone who can do this a little more consistently than I have done it, as last week can attest. But it also helps me expand the reach of the show so that I can reach more people and help more people. Part of the mission here is to help other people achieve the kind of dreams that they've been holding on to, move toward the mountain that they have. I was asked, Honoré Corder, who has been a guest on this show, she was the lovely lady who wrote the foreword to 30 Day Author. In her Prosperity for Writers forum on Facebook, she asked, "What does prosperity mean to you?" And my answer was, in essence, and I don't know, I may get this a little wrong, but my answer was, prosperity means having the ability to achieve your dreams while also enabling other people to achieve theirs. That's not what I said, actually. But it was close. So I realized halfway through, I don't remember the exact quote. But that is prosperity for me. So I want to be able to move myself ahead. It's the airplane model, right? I want to put on my own mask so that I can help other people put on their masks. So I want to help you achieve your goals and your dreams. So on that note, let's move on from Patreon and other things. Thank you for sitting through that. That's like 8 minutes worth of me rambling on about the things I love. But now we're going to have a conversation with Melissa Burch, and you're going to love this conversation. Now, I titled this Unconventional Marketing, but there's so much more going on in this interview. Melissa, I initially brought her on because she's also doing the RV thing. And she branded her RV, and you're going to love that story. I won't step on it, but you should definitely check, listen to this entire interview, and then I would love for you to respond. Send me something, call me, whatever. I want to hear what you think of this because, she's had such an incredible life, and she's such an amazing person. I was very impressed with her. So check out this interview with Melissa Burch, and stick around after for the wrap-up. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. Okay, I am always the guy who gives you the straight dope, and I'm going to confess, this is the second time I've tried to do this. This is the second time I've tried to talk to this particular guest, but we're going to do it right this time. Now, the person I'm talking to today, and I started with talking about how Kara and I are on the road, or going to be on the road. We're going to have a little book tour. We're going to travel in an RV. And what's great about that is when you start talking about that publicly and openly, you meet all these wonderful people who are not only interested in it, some of them are doing it themselves. And that's where we are today. I'm talking to Melissa Burch. She's the author of My Journey Through War and Peace. And she's about to do very much the same thing that Kara and I are going to do. And so that's exciting all in its own right. So, Melissa, thanks for being on the show with me.
Yes, I'm excited to be here, Kevin. Thank you for inviting me.
And also, thanks for being patient, because this is a warts and all show, by the way. I always reveal all the inner workings of what went wrong. And you and I just had almost this exact conversation a few minutes ago. So thanks for bearing with me on that.
No problem.
All right. So we were talking about you're about to hop on the road in an RV. I really do want to hear about what brought you to that decision and, sort of your take on the RV lifestyle, I guess. What made you decide you were going to do this?
Well, I think it started a while back. I mean, if we go way back, my husband always wanted to do this kind of RV trip vacation.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a terrible idea between you and me. I was like, really? No. And, the first year he brought it up, there was like a terrible Hollywood film about everything that could go wrong with an RV.
Right.
And then my dad had a friend who had crossed this very narrow bridge he had to his property, and he looked really shaken, when he got out of his RV. So that was sort of like, okay, we're not doing the RV thing. And then we had a friend who was totally into RVs. So they were just like, we're going to do RV time. We're going to do this thing. And I was like, really? Okay. But then we went to the RV Expo in Boston in 2015. Mm-hmm. And it was I was really amazed by the people and, climbing into them and getting the inside view. And we were at that point, ready to sell and start, a new life in kind of the tiny home way.
Right, yeah.
And so it kind of made sense now that we were going to do this book tour to go out and get an RV. And, of course, I'm the backwards one. I'm like, okay, we're going to get a friend who has a 35-year-old RV. And my husband's like, no, I think we need a new one. So we went to the expo this year and we bought a new one. So that's a long answer to your question.
No, actually, I think it's almost exactly it's almost exactly what happened with Kara and myself. She actually showed up in my office one day and said, hey, why don't we sell the house and buy an RV? And that started a conversation because she was like you. At first, she had no intention of doing that. It was the most unattractive sounding thing in the world to her. So I think everybody kind of goes through that. When you're going to get into this, you go to an RV show, you find out they're not horrible. You find out what's available. So that's fantastic. So what's your sort of what's the first step on the journey once you actually do it? When are you doing it? When does it start?
Everything starts March 1st. Actually, Today we're getting, we're doing a wrap. So for those of you who don't know what that is, it's like a big advertisement, like a plastic printed ad. So we're just got that installed as of last night. And so my husband and my son, 18-year-old son, who's not a little, he's a little wary of being 3 months on the road with his mom and dad, as you can imagine, but excited too. So they're going to pick up the RV with the wrap, and we really start March 1st. Our first book reading is in where we were living in Cambridge, Mass, and then we start heading south, which I'm so excited. Having made it through another New England winter, it wasn't too bad this year. But we'll be heading south down to New York and D.C. and Philadelphia, and we keep going all the way. 3 months, 10,000 miles, and 16 cities. So yeah,
3 months on the road. We're heading south. Florida and that anywhere?
It is. We're doing Miami, I think Good Friday. So those of you who hopefully might in the area come see us.
Very cool. Yeah. If you get into Houston, you get down to the coast and take a little bit of a right. I mean, come by.
Oh, that would be fun. I know that's the fun thing is you can come visit. I got my mom's Good China in the RV, and George is like, why did you, put Good China? And I'm like, because we're going to entertain. Right.
Good China.
That's the fun part, It's like, okay, come and have a coffee with us.
Now, I would be so worried about something like Good China in an RV. We're talking about probably the first few months we'll be eating off of paper plates because we just don't know. We don't know what to expect. So, are you okay? So you're talking about that wrapper for the RV, and that's to advertise your work.
Yeah, so what I did was I wrote a memoir. I was a war journalist in Afghanistan. So
Okay.
I was 21 on the border in Pakistan and was going in for CBS and BBC. So the memoir is about a really adventure, courageous journey into, what a war-torn country similar to where it is now, although we're the invaders, and at that
Yeah.
time it was the Soviets. And so we're really taking that theme of the heroine's journey, literally, like we've
Yeah.
plastered it on the RV.
Wow.
And metaphorically, where are we? And I don't think it's gender based. I think a man can be on a heroine's journey as much as a woman.
Hmm.
But, asking that question, what is the heroine's journey? Where are you on that journey in your own life? So
Right.
it's kind of a matchup with, okay, here's this memoir and this very intimate, personal, intense journey story. And then what's happening with other people's lives right now
Right.
around that.
Yeah. So that's interesting. And I actually want to come back and talk about that idea of how even men can be on the heroine's journey. Before I do that, though, I do want to ask you about like the wrapper and everything that you're doing with the RV. Was that sort of the intention? Was that the purpose of this? Was to promote or
Yeah, I mean,
okay?
we were in this sort of transition. We have a tiny house in Greece, my husband's
Yeah.
Greek.
Oh, okay.
And so my son, we thought we would be in Europe, but what happened was he wanted to finish his high school years, so we
Hmm.
ended up in this kind of vagabond mode. So I think it was really a combination of a lifestyle and okay, we have this project, how can we do it in an exciting, fun way,
Yeah. That's incredible. That's exactly what I'm trying to do. So that's good. I'm going to follow what you're doing. You're documenting this? I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm a filmmaker. George and I met in film school in London,
Okay.
over 30 years ago. So that's sort of part of who we are. So
Well, I'll
yeah,
be on
we
the
love to
lookout.
document. Yeah, yeah.
That's fantastic. All right. So okay, now I want to talk about the men being able to take the heroine's journey. So what do we mean when we say the heroine's journey?
Yeah, and I think everybody sort of knows the hero's journey. Joseph
Yeah.
Campbell made that really famous of,
Yeah.
kind of the reluctant hero or Star Wars, like, you go out into the world and you conquer and you have all these obstacles to overcome. And I think that's part of the heroine's journey. I mean, but what's more interesting about it is there's this underlying of looking within, like, who am I? Where does those two meet up in terms of I want to go out and be successful in the world, but I also want to stay true to those internal values and those things that we know make the difference in
Hmm.
relationships, how we interact, our environment, how do we take care of the environment. It's not just about conquering the environment, it's about taking care of it and nurturing it. And so it's a balance of both in a way. And I think many times the heroine's journey isn't even talked about, right? Because
Right.
we're so outwardly focused. And so it's bringing that attention that these two intertwine, and I'm calling it the heroine's journey just to give it a little more emphasis for the feminine.
I like it. I think it's going to catch on.
Oh, good. I hope so. I think we need more of those questions, being asked because I think many women too are so focused on the hero's journey, they feel dried up or
Yeah.
like they even made it. They were really successful out there, but they don't feel happy. They're missing something that they know is inside of them. And some manage both really well. They're
Yeah.
very, very comfortable doing both. So
That sort of void that you're talking about, I think a lot of people suffer from that, like and don't know what it is, and don't so and because of that, don't know how to fix it.
and our culture doesn't give any attention to it. I
No,
mean, it's
no.
like, okay, you got a job or you don't have a job. You should have a job or, you have a relationship or you should, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's like they're almost like benchmarks instead of the heroine's life or the journey is much messier and it flows
Yeah.
and there isn't one way to do it, right? So you
Right.
can't judge yourself based on these sort of outward standards that we're faced in the media and even our families and stuff can bring it out.
Oh yeah. I think everyone kind of has that. There's that conflict, I guess. I don't know. I hesitate to call it conflict, but the sort of bumping of heads between when you're coming of age and what your family expects you're going to do versus what you hope to do, and I think that does cause these little rifts in your I don't know, in your personality, I guess, that you try to fill this void for most of your life. Sometimes you go off in the wrong direction, right?
And it takes courage, right?
Right.
Because you're following what feels right to you, but may not look right to other people. So it's like you have to be okay with making other people, question you or even judge you, right?
Right. Right. That's interesting. Now, making people judge you is an interesting turn of phrase. Is there an advantage to having people judge you?
Well, I think people do it all the time, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I think we're always, and we do it to others too, of course,
Of
right? I
course,
mean,
yeah.
so it's not like we're like outside of that loop. I
Right.
I think that that's just the nature of human beings is we're comparing ourselves, and then I think the more insecure we are, we have narrower and narrower definitions of what's okay and what's not okay.
Right. That's true. You're kind of unique. I think you're almost a unicorn because of what the way you are kind of approaching this. I'm really interested now, and I want to learn more about your experiences in the Soviet Union. I mean, during the Cold War of all times, I grew up with that sort of red fear. That's the way it was. So, what was it like going through all that?
Well, I think
And I know that's a big question. So you take it in whatever chunks you need.
I think it's a great question because I think, first of all, there's a history that many people listening to this may not even know. What does the Cold War mean? I mean, they might
Right.
have heard the term, but what did it mean? And it was so much about propaganda and
Right.
about telling Americans, there's the enemy, they're over there. And I kind of identified with it in a very direct, personal way because when I was in Afghanistan with the Mujahideen, I started to feel like the Soviet Union is the enemy. We were being bombed at, and helicopters were dropping bombs, and
Mm-hmm.
we had the first trip I took, we attacked, or the Mujahideen attacked, and I filmed it, a small convoy going across on the highway. So I started to identify with the Soviet Union as the enemy. And then, in one of those amazing, crazy ways life can just do a 180, I met a woman who basically made it her mission to show the human side of the Soviet people. And the way she did that was she took the Trans-Siberian Railroad
Mm-hmm.
at the time of the Olympic boycott. So we're talking really ancient history, right?
Yeah.
1980.
Yeah.
And she recreated the people she met on that train into puppets and started to tell the story, the human side of the story. And something about her work and her passion and the truth of that, I realized, wow, I myself had been very blinded and black and white about my thinking,
Mm-hmm.
and that started a very intense relationship with the Soviet Union, and we ended up being partners, Susan and I, and even Sarah in the book, and lovers, and we went over into the Soviet Union. We were one of the first crews allowed in just after Gorbachev was elected. So we saw, just as things were shifting over there from a very kind of deeply communist country into more freedoms coming
Yeah.
out. So it was an interesting time in history, but also the people were living their lives just like the rest of us. They had their families and their work and their concerns, and they were human beings just like
Yeah.
us.
Was there ever a moment in there where you were afraid of what you would encounter or what might happen to you?
Well, the irony of being in the former Soviet Union at that time was
Mm-hmm.
that the guide that we brought from the United States was more afraid of us being there than the Soviet guide. So that's how much history was happening in the
Right.
moment.
Right.
So
Yes.
so it's so strange. And so it took us a while to realize that everything we were asking to do, which seemed very simple, like go to a disco with teenagers or go to a coffee shop, they were going to be possible, but in her mind, it was still the old Soviet. And so we were kept getting tracked into these very, kind of speeches by principals in schools that were so dull and so unfilmable
Yeah.
in terms of a film. But so we were caught in that moment of change, and it took us a while to unravel that. And even the film itself had difficulties around that because people wanted either they're all bad or they're all good, and that's not.
Right.
That's just not what was happening.
Yeah. I can't even imagine that experience. Now, I also worked in documentary, mostly television, for like PBS and a little for Discovery and that sort of thing. And we did a series covering a SOG mission that happened in around 74, and
Wow.
involved, basically part of the story was about Vietnam crossing the border, and a lot of the guys we had with us were still wanted war criminals to this day, some of them.
Wow.
So that was some exciting stuff, and we were warned off of that a lot. So there is something very life changing, but also life affirming about those sorts of experiences. So it's very interesting. It sounds like you and I had some similar experiences. You much more so than me, actually. I mean, you were entrenched. I was just sort of almost a spectator.
Yeah, I mean, I think you need just one encounter to see that one's world, what we think our own world is about, isn't the whole world, And I think
Right.
that's what social media is doing now for anybody who's interested, is you can find a buddy, even in Syria or places where the news is very limited, what's coming out. On an individual level, it is possible to find, the truth in the people and start to have these conversations online. And I think that's the biggest change. And when we were back in those times, you couldn't even pick up the phone and call somebody, right? I mean, it was just impossible. So accessibility to other people in their life experiences now is part of our culture.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? I mean, and that's it's kind of weird, really. I mean, because I grew up in a world where the very thought of talking to someone on the other side of the globe was nearly impossible. I'm sure you did too. And now it's an everyday occurrence. So it is interesting. How do you feel that social media is impacting sort of the cultural climate of these places now that they can, hear from us or vice versa?
Well, I mean, even the kind of fundraising, I mean, in my inbox, I'm very interested in what's happening to women and how difficult it is for so many women in other parts of the world. And their stories are getting, into my inbox, like of a young woman who was killed by her father because she married the wrong guy, wasn't things like that just are shocking. I'm getting that news directly into my inbox. And so I think that international cultural exchange is just, social media is allowing that.
Yeah.
So I think that's it's good. I think on the other side, we're overwhelmed by how much information. Everybody complains about it, of course. But I think if you're selective around where do you want to make a difference, like what is it that really resonates with you, whether it's the environment or women's stories or just how to feed your family healthy food, what I mean, whatever that is, then just focus on that and just know that other people are focusing on the other things that are needing attention, but we can't be all over, and that's the way to handle social media, or at least that's the way I try to do it.
Well, it's interesting because in my world, I mean, one of the big pieces of news lately has been that because of mobile devices, all these, now it gets talked about in terms of market because we all want to make money, but this idea that now in Africa, for example, people who never had access to radio, television, computers now have direct access to the internet because of mobile devices, and how that's opened up new markets, but it's also sort of impacting those cultures because for the first time now they have all this information literally in the palm of their hand.
Yeah. It's very interesting. My dad, who's a kind of inventor, entrepreneur, so I come from that kind of a lineage,
Yeah.
And he's cataloged the internet and is looking at that same exact question of how do people who just have a cell phone access information, and how can they start to make connections with people around the world around that information, and how can they gather that information in such a way that they invent new things, they understand new ideas. It's so I'm kind of in that world. He calls it Linkopedia. So,
Linkopedia, that's awesome.
Linkopedia, yeah, it's in that beta test mode, but it's that's the exact question he has is in these, international, I mean, third world is such a loaded term, but
Yeah.
these parts of the country where they now have access to cell phones, how are they going to use it? And what are the methods to support that?
I've been reading all of Peter H. Diamandis's books. Well, the two that I know about. I don't know if he has more, but that's a theme that's come up, is this idea that now there are all these sort of micro industries that are evolving. And it's interesting because in the Western world, we think about, when we think about mobile technology and how we can make money with it, we're almost limited because we are trained to think in certain ways. And these people are now encountering this technology and applying all new perspectives and all new ways of thinking to it. So it's going to be really neat, actually, to watch and see what evolves out of that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's some fascinating stories of, certain people learning math in ways that were just totally unorthodox, and they end up coming up with, brilliant concepts just because they weren't taught how to do it in a linear fashion.
Right. That's fascinating. Okay, I have to bring something up that just popped up because, as I'm talking to you, I'm on your website, right? And
Okay.
you have a pop-up, which is good. Good marketing. And what I noticed is that if you sign up on your mailing list here, you get the Heroine's Journey. I'm sorry, I slipped. Heroine's Journey coloring book, and I'm really curious about it because coloring books are this big new thing, and everyone's pushing them. So I'm fascinated that you have a coloring book to go with your book.
And I'm so excited by it because I met this amazing illustrator. Her name is Alice Marshall, and she is like old school, drawer, like pencil and paper, Rembrandt style. And so, I mean, really, like just, really old school, exquisite skill. And so she took these goddesses, heroines that have been, in part of my interest, like Athena and Lilith, and she did her own interpretation of them. And so we're going to scan them. She's going to ship. She's living right now in Sweden, and so she took it with her phone, the picture. But they're coming, and we're going to scan them. And we have a designer who's just turned it into a beautiful digital version of a coloring book, so you'll get to print them out, and they're so original. And I just think her work is magnificent. So that's kind of what happened. Was I met Alice, and I had these goddesses that I like to print off the internet, and that was the inspiration around the coloring book.
Okay, so here's what I'm digging about you so far, Melissa. You're a very unconventional marketer.
I am.
You are, and it's awesome because I mean that. First of all, just the RV thing alone is fascinating. It's a story, right? And I mean, you're creating a story by just by doing that. The fact that you're a filmmaker helps that a lot. And to offer a coloring book and to put the wrapper on the RV, and all these things are very unconventional, and I love them because you don't hear about this stuff all the time. You hear people kind of spitball that as an idea, but you never see anyone actually go through with it. So I'm really excited to see you doing this. I'm going to be following you very closely to see how it works out.
Oh, great. Well, especially since you guys, I mean, have you picked out your RV?
We have.
Okay.
we may change our mind by the time we actually buy. We bought a smaller RV as our sort of phase one right now.
Okay.
And we're going to move into a much larger motor coach, hopefully by the end of the year, we're thinking. But now I'm thinking about doing the wrapper and making it, rolling billboard for my work.
You want to hear something really funny?
Always.
So when we went in to buy the RV, okay, so we were at the expo. They didn't have many. My husband had researched that we need a Class A. So those of you out there who don't know what that is, think bus. Like that's a big leap, for those of us who are used to our little, like we have a Prius, right? So we are at the expo, and they don't have that many Class A's on display. So the guy's like, there's one that just rolled in the lot, and you should go check it out. So we're like, okay, and we went, and they had left the guys who do like maintenance, to take care of the dealership because everybody's at the expo, right? So we're kind of like getting this, very relaxed tour, let's call it. And then another author drives up with a huge RV. Like we're looking under 30 feet because we want to be able to go into the national parks and stuff.
Right.
And this guy comes to me with like, I don't know what the exact footage was, but at least over 40 feet, Yeah. And he's doing his book. And the guy there, you should have seen his jaw like drop. Like, what? There are two writers who are doing RVs? Like, that never happens. I've never seen one. Now there's two of you, so now we'll have three. So
that's amazing. Yeah, we need to form a club.
I know. It was really funny. It was so funny to see him, and he had a wrap for his too, so that was fun.
So, do you mind if I ask how much it cost you to do the wrapper?
The wrap. So we got a great deal. We love the guys down there. I mean, we worked between my sister helped, who's an artist, she's an artist, and my designer, and then the wrap guy. So it was kind of a team effort. So it cost us, what was our final amount? $6,000. We're in that $6,000. So it's a big change, but because I wrote a trilogy, I wrote 2 books already, and third one's about 60 pages in. Then we designed it in such a way you can just kind of take off the back and put up the new book,
Oh, nice, yes.
So we don't have to do the whole thing again because they're expensive. Like that's a big investment.
Yeah, that's a big chunk. I mean, but that's an advertising budget, really, and the fact that it's a rolling billboard that's going all over the place. I mean, I don't know. I could justify it.
I hope so. I mean, I want to have conversations around that question of the heroine's journey. So I think it's intriguing enough that people will be like, what? Let's see what this is about, That's
really cool. So, I mean, do you think that your target audience is out there, in the places that you're going to be rolling to? I mean, are they going to be in those places, or are you specifically going to places where they'll be?
Well, I think that's the interesting thing. Memoir is a very niche-y world. Mm-hmm. And so I mean, of course, men are interested in memoirs, but it's mostly women. And I think that the indie bookstore world and memoir are definitely a great fit. I mean, I think that's where people definitely, and we're looking for readers, of course, although not everybody has to be a reader to enjoy a book. But so I think we'll have to see. I'll have to let you know, right? I mean...
You better, because now you're a case study for what I'm going to do here. I'm going to want to know how you did it. Are you how are you organizing the actual book tour? Have you called ahead and set up, stops at your bookstores and that sort of thing where you're going to be?
Absolutely, and it was not easy. So if you want to get started, I would start really in advance.
Yes.
It was not something you could do last minute, and I think it took much more work than I expected. So so start early and build up the relationship with the bookstores. And I think their biggest concern is, will there be an audience there? Because it's hard to get people to leave their computers and actually go into a store. So I think that's their concern, and we're doing everything we can to make sure the audience is there. So, we're using all our networks and all our themes to let people know, come to the bookstore. And also, I mean, some of the things that we're interested, like I keep saying, is the conversation. So I don't want to just read at people. I really want to know, where are you in your life right now? What kind of journey are you, what edge are you on right now? And so that's really why I want to get on the road and talk to people. Right.
Are you, as you're documenting this, is this primarily going to just be for a film or video, or are you also planning another book out of this?
I'm such a story person. I mean, I've had one of those lives that's just exceptional.
Right.
Like I could write. So, and just the last 3 weeks of trying to get this book ready for the bookstores was in itself a drama beyond any dramas. I mean, it was really something. Right. So I think, definitely I can see another memoir coming. I mean, the thing about memoirs, I don't know what your book is about, but they're theme based. So it's like what stories you choose and what memories sort of bubble up are related to the theme of the story. So I don't even know what that theme will be. I mean, this one now, the one that's coming out of my journey through War and Peace, and it has a subtitle, which is Explorations of a Young Filmmaker, Feminist and Spiritual Seeker. is that coming of age of that young adult of, okay, that's the time you can take really big risks like you did, and
Right.
and that's I mean, you can do it when you're older, but I think that's the natural time to, go travel someplace that you would never imagine yourself actually doing, but go do it, like that's the age to do it because you can sleep on the floor and it doesn't matter so much anymore.
Right.
Things like that.
So now I want to know, because memoir is something, I'm very interested in memoir. I don't write memoir. Not really. I mean, I do it via blogs and that sort of thing, I guess you could technically call that. So I'm interested now, like, what are some of the difficulties in constructing a memoir?
Well, I think I probably did every mistake conceivable in writing a memoir, so I can speak to that very directly.
Good. You're the right one. You're the person we need to talk to.
I mean, I thought memoir was just tell your stories because, like I said, I have a lot of great stories, and
Right.
I've told to everybody. And then when I wrote that out into what I thought was my first draft, and it's like, well, wait a minute, this is just a bunch of stories. Why what connects these? And so there is that layer in memoir writing, which now I'm really fascinated by, of okay, what's the underlying connections? And I think that was the exciting thing. I mean, for those out there who are thinking of writing a memoir, or I'm also really into journal writing, so you don't have to necessarily take it to
Right.
a fine published form, but starting to examine, okay, why did that memory come out so strongly, and how does that connect to where you are now, or your point of view of life, or what happened later, and I uncovered a lot of things that I didn't see in the beginning. It was only through the process of writing did I start to understand layers of myself and stories as they relate to a bigger subject in other people's lives. So that I think is a fascinating world to do. And people can do it at any level. Like blogging also is very relevant to that.
I actually know several people who've built author careers by starting with their blog. Jenny Lawson, the blog guest. I don't know if you know her at all. Her most recent book is Furiously Happy, I think. And that's how she started, was as a blog. We were both bloggers together, actually, at the Houston Chronicle. So
wow.
I think that's a good way to kind of practice and get into it. And, she writes the same sort of memoir style. So I should get her on the show. I keep forgetting to invite her on the shows. So I am this. You are multi-layered, and I like that. You're my kind of person.
Thank you.
When we first started this, I honestly, what I wanted was I wanted to talk to someone else who was doing something around the RV life, and I'm fascinated that you're doing it the way you're doing it. But the more we talk, the more I realize that everything goes so much deeper with you. So I feel like I'm doing you kind of an injustice here. We're not quite digging in as much on some things that I think would be fascinating to the listeners because there's so much. So we'll have to come back sometime.
Oh, thank you. No, it's a total treat. I mean, it's always how somebody asks the question too, right?
Yeah.
It's a big piece of it.
So, are you with a traditional publisher?
I am.
Okay.
I'm with a literary small indie press out of Toronto, and they've been around 40 years. And so I'm doing that whole, getting it to book reviewers and having them. Fortunately, I've had some great reviews. I just got into Publisher Weekly, which, as you know, is kind of the industry publication that, it's good to have a gold star from them. So yay. And so, I mean, there are a lot of doors that open. I've done self-publishing too. Like I published a journal writing book that did really well on Amazon. It was in the #1 for a nanosecond, and it's been in top 10 for several years.
Yeah.
And so I know the self-publishing too, as a vehicle, which I actually prefer to be.
Yeah.
I know you shouldn't say that, right?
Well, you're not supposed to say it, but I agree.
No, I prefer it now that I haven't completed the whole indie press thing, but I guess I'm a little bit of a control freak. So I see that very distinctly in myself that second book, I think I'll self-publish.
Yeah. Okay. I'm kind of happy to hear that. And now I want to know, like, what are the aspects of self-publishing that are making it much more attractive to you?
Well, I think, since I did a lot of the work myself, I mean, as you probably know, in the publishing world, unless you're that celebrity or
Right.
where they think you are the next rising star,
Right.
you have to do everything yourself. And I like doing it myself, actually. I kind of like marketing and I like thinking through how to be strategic. And so I could just do it myself, which I
Right.
ended up doing, but then I had to kind of check in and that had its difficulties at times. So,
Yeah.
I think that now that I got to see, okay, what does the indie publisher actually offer?
Mm-hmm.
There are some things there that, as a self-published, but I think there's a hybrid where you can set up your own publishing company and have the best of all worlds.
Yeah.
So that's I think is going to be my next step.
That is interesting. Okay, I mean, I had a traditional contract at one point. I ended up buying out on it in favor of self-publishing, and I don't really regret that. Although these days I'm now thinking, okay, I've experienced self-publishing. Now I want to experience traditional publishing, and so I'm kind of dipping my toes in those waters again. So it's kind of great to hear, you kind of coming the other way. So that I feel like I've made a good choice, really. And a lot of my audience are self-published authors, I think. So they're probably going to feel the same way. I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah, yeah.
But here's what's interesting to me. I mean, I don't think any traditional publishers would necessarily fund the kind of marketing that you're doing. So you do have at least that flexibility in the way that you went.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody would ever tell an author they can't spend their own money on marketing.
True,
I mean,
that is true.
but I think when I'm in some groups on Facebook, and I think a lot of times authors think they need to do the traditional way of publicity, and I think that's a total waste of money between you and me. I mean, I see these people wanting to spend $10,000 a month on a publicity person, and I just think, oh my God, I feel very sad if you do that, because that's just not how it works, you know. And I'm sure people are going to send you messages. I did it and it worked beautifully, but
there's always the person it worked for. But I got to tell you, a $10,000 a month budget could get me a lot further on, say, Facebook or some other advertising platforms, I think, than paying someone to do publicity.
Exactly. And I think people don't realize that publicity person could have done a phenomenal job, and it doesn't sell books.
Right.
I mean, that's the sad thing, is like, so you have to know what you want. I mean, if you want to try to get one of those articles, but they can't guarantee you that either.
That's true.
So, yeah, that's a lot of money.
I think you probably, I think you might have a better chance of getting articles about yourself in, the big publications if you're driving around in an RV with your book on the side and, and filming it and offering coloring books. I think that sort of thing might be more attractive as a story, right?
That's what I'm hoping. And I think it's more real, I mean, just like, okay, this author wrote a book. Well, that's what authors do, right?
Right, exactly.
Well,
and if you're doing the same thing everyone else is doing, you're going to look like everyone else. I like the idea of being the pink penguin. You're standing out from that crowd and offering yourself to everyone. I love it, man. I'm very fascinated by you now. Okay. And unfortunately, I mean, I don't want to take up too much of your time. We had a little glitch in the beginning that kind of ate up a little time, but I want to respect where you are here and let you get back to your regularly scheduled life and everything. But while you're on the road, where can people find you in the digital world?
Okay. Oh, that's really fun. So I have a website.
Okay.
It's www.melissa-burch.com. So it's my name, MELISSA BURCH.com.
Okay.
And I'm running this little special that you mentioned earlier, that if you do pre-order my book, and you can get it anywhere from Amazon and Barnes and Nobles and Indie Books and wherever. And if you send me, and the email is right there, mcburch@gmail.com, which you can get on the website. Okay. I will send you this beautiful coloring book, and I'm just going to run a whole bunch of specials while we're on the road too. So, and if you're anywhere on that route, please pop me an email or tweet me, and it would be so much fun to meet up. So yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm gonna. So is there something on your site that's like you're saying there's something on your site that shows your next stop, that sort of thing?
Yeah, there's a
Okay.
whole book tour thing, so you can just follow. And
Okay.
I'm a big Twitter, so
Okay.
follow me there, Melissa Burch. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, I am going to go check that out because I want to see if because I'm traveling a lot over the next 3 months myself, so maybe we'll overlap. It would be kind of
That
cool.
would be great.
Yeah,
We can do it together, right?
that'd be awesome. Yeah, I'm gonna feel wholly inadequate though with my tiny little camper, and your giant RV next to me.
I know, but we're intimidated by our giant Earth.
You actually, you just pointed out something earlier to me that I hadn't considered actually, that I forgot about, which was a limitation on the length of the RV in national parks. I have to go remind my wife of that because we were thinking about going bigger with the RV. So now I got to go tell her we have to, unless we don't want to go to the national parks, I got to change our plan a little.
Yeah, I think it's under 30 feet. So that was kind of ours. We're like 29. We're a 29 footer
Okay.
with some inches. So yeah.
I'm just gonna. I'll camouflage the back end of the RV. Just make it look like.
I don't know if they take out a tape measure or a check.
They might do that. All right. Well, thanks so much for being on the show, Melissa. I appreciate it. I'll be honest, and I started this kind of flummoxed because of the technical difficulties. So I think you got a raw deal at the beginning of this interview. But I am completely fascinated, not just by what you're doing now, but by what you've already been through. So I'm going to encourage everybody, go check out Melissa's website, of course. I'll have the link to her site in the show notes and her Twitter handle, so you can find her on Twitter. Definitely follow along as she's going on this journey. I'm going to. So thanks, Melissa, for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
Me too. Thank you. What a treat.
All right. Everyone else, hang out for the wrap up at the end of this interview, and I'll see you all next week. All right. That was my interview with Melissa Burch, and I hope you enjoyed that. I love meeting people who are getting out and doing these amazing things with their lives. The story that she has to tell, though, that goes so far beyond the RV topic that I really initially brought her on for. I mean, just that story of her world travels and what she's doing with all that. That's just amazing. And the marketing aspect of this, very cool. I mean, if you think about it, marketing is this thing that we overthink sometimes. And I get bogged down in this too. There's this idea that it's all about data. It's all about testing things and, running ideas through the mill to see what catches on. There is a large component of that, this sort of iterative approach to, figuring out where your audience is and the best way to reach them. I love what Melissa's doing, though, because it's creative. And we are entrepreneurs in general, authors in particular. I mean, the whole goal here is to have a very creative life. So I particularly love this idea of what have I got? What resources do I have? And how can I turn those to my advantage? So I hope you enjoyed this interview. If you are enjoying the show, please let me know. Call me, 281-809-WORD. That's 281-809-9673. And you can also visit wordslingerpodcast.com where you can leave me emails, voicemails. There's all kinds of ways to contact me there. You can follow me on Twitter. I never mention this, but I mean, you can. I'm at Kevin Tomlinson. I'm fairly active on Twitter. I'm more active on Facebook, but either way is great. I will interact with you. If you ping me on Twitter, I will talk to you. And I will share things with you. So if you'd like some free books, I can help you out. Now, there's a couple of things going on here, and I think you're going to dig both. But you can actually, if you go to my website, kevintomlinson.com, you can pop in right now through May. There's a giveaway going on where you can get a free. Let me back up for a second. There's a giveaway offering 3 copies to 3 different winners of a free signed paperback edition of my book Citadel Omnibus. And right now it has a brand new, really cool looking cover, and you can see it if you go to kevintomlinson.com. In addition to that, all 3 of those winners will also receive a $50 Amazon gift card and a free e-copy of Citadel First Colony. plus I think 5 other free ebooks from different authors. So you literally can't lose. Like, you sign up and you get on my mailing list. That's what's happening here, and the mailing list of Reign of Reeds, and you'll instantly be entered into this contest for your chance to win. But you will get free ebooks no matter what. So go check that out. Now, while you're on the site, you can also just get on my mailing list directly and get 3 free ebooks. There's a million different ways to register on my site. Just look for any registration form on the site, sign in with your name and email address, and you'll get 3 free books. Now, I've had some people tell me that for whatever reason, occasionally it rejects an email address. I don't know why. I can't figure out why. But if that happens to you, never fear. Just hit the contact button, send me a quick email, tell me what happened. I'll make sure that you are entered in the list and that you get those free books. That is my promise. So, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Wordslinger Podcast. If you'd like to support the show, there's 2 great ways you can do that. One is to buy my books, especially if you're an entrepreneur, you may enjoy 30-Day Author. But if you just want something great to read, some fiction, that's what I'm all about. You can go to kevintomlinson.com/books and find any of my fiction there. kevintomlinson.com/30-Day Author will also send you to the direct page for that booking by on any platform on which you like to read, including print. And you can support this show financially through Patreon. God bless you guys who are supporting me through Patreon. I know I haven't set it up properly yet. I promise there's incentives and other goodies that are going to be coming your way. I just have to figure it all out and then find the time to do it. So, and I think my friend Garrett Robinson would kind of kick me in the man bits if I didn't do this right. He's given me some great advice. Thank you, Garrett. And I will follow it, I promise. So if you will go check that out at kevintomlinson.com. That beeping in the background is my lunch, by the way. kevintomlinson.com /books/ or wordslingerpodcast.com. You can get to all of it in the same place. Go check that out. Thank you so much for tuning in. You can find the Patreon campaign there is what I think I was getting at. Thank you for tuning in. Tune in again next week. We're going to have another great guest. I look forward to the beeping. I look forward to I just stop and just start recording again, but it's too funny. I look forward to chatting with you again. Take care. See you next week. God bless.
Wordslinger.